Hello, this is Miss Rutledge, and we're going to talk about food safety today. Some of you may or may not know, but I did attend culinary arts at School of Craft College. So, I just want to give you some, insights on, food safety. If you have any questions at the end, you can ask them or you can type them in the chat box. Okay, so we are going to first talk about clean. We were talking about washing your hands. I'm going to go back to the slide that I was at. So we want to talk about washing your hands for 20 seconds with plain soap and water. When do you want to do this? You want to do this before eating your food, before preparing food, before and after treating a cut or a wound, before and after caring for someone who is sick, after handling uncooked eggs, raw meat, poultry, seafood, after blowing your nose, coughing or sneezing, after touching an animal, after touching garbage or using the restroom. So basically, you want to wash your hands quite a bit in a day. Now, we're still talking about clean here. You're talking about washing surfaces and utensils after each use. So you use paper towels or clean cloths to wipe up kitchen surfaces or spills. Washcloths often in hot cycle of your washing machine. Wash cutting boards, dishes, utensils, and countertops with hot soapy water after preparing each food item and before you go to the next item. This will keep you from cross-contaminating your food. You'll want to wash your fruits and veggies, but you never want to wash your meat, poultry, or eggs. So cut away any of the damaged areas or bruised areas on your fruit or vegetables. You'll rinse the product under water. Don't use soap, bleach, or commercial produce washes. Just water's fine. Scrub the product or the produce like melons or cucumbers. You can also peel those as well. Dry produce with a paper towel or a clean cloth, and you're done. And then why do you not want to wash poultry or eggs? So washing raw meat and poultry can actually help bacteria spread because their juices may splash onto and contaminate your sink and countertops. All commercial eggs are washed before they're sold, so any extra handling of the eggs, such as washing, may actually increase the risk of cross-contamination, especially if the shell has become cracked. And we're going to watch just a little video here on clean.
Lucia and her daughter Sam are enjoying a bite to eat after a long trip to the grocery store. But before they prepared their snack, they were careful to make sure their food and their hands were clean. Between the store and home, Sam and Lucia could have picked up dirt or bacteria on their hands from the outside of their grocery bags, from the trunk of their car, the doorknob, even the food itself. Sam takes the time to wash her hands properly with soap and warm water. She lathers and rubs them together for 20 seconds, being sure to lather the backs of her hands, between her fingers, and under her nails. If Sam plans to prepare or eat food, she should wash her hands. After touching her cell phone, after sneezing, after petting mittens, and after handling uncooked meat or eggs. Lucia might think she can clean bacteria off of the raw meat she bought by rinsing it in the sink, but she would be wrong. Because of the way bacteria attaches to raw meat, poultry, and seafood, Lucia will never be able to wash off all the bacteria that may be present. And during the washing, she could actually spread bacteria around the kitchen. Lucia should never wash meat or poultry. Cooking them to a safe internal temperature is the only way to be sure they are safe. Lucia could either cook this meat right away, store it in the fridge if she plans to use it within a few days, or freeze it and cook it later. Freezing meat slows the growth of bacteria, and cooking meat to the proper internal temperature kills it. On the other hand, fruits and vegetables should be washed thoroughly before eating, cutting, or cooking. Sam doesn't use soap or detergent when washing her produce. She uses a scrub brush for firm fruits and vegetables. She even uses a scrub brush on items she will peel or cut into before eating, like lemons, squash, or cantaloupe, because bacteria can spread from the outside to the inside as she cuts or peels them. Sam and Lucia can now enjoy a healthy snack, knowing they have a clean kitchen, clean hands, and clean food. For more information on cleaning and washing food, visit Food Safety.
Okay, so we did get some information there on, make sure you're washing your hands and how to clean food properly. Next, we're going to talk about separating your food. So don't cross-contaminate your food. Why does it matter? Even after you've cleaned your hands and surfaces thoroughly, raw meat, poultry, seafood, and eggs can still spread illness, causing bacteria on ready-to-eat foods unless you keep them separate. But which foods need to be kept separate, and how do you do that? So first of all, we're going to use separate cutting boards. You can see up here, these are all different color cutting boards. And I know when we were in school, we'd have different color cutting boards for different items, like red we would use for meat, green we would use for vegetables, yellow we would use for seafood, and so on. So you can, make sure you use those ones all the time for just those specific foods. So what you can see here, by placing ready-to-eat food on the surface that held raw meat, poultry, seafood, or eggs can spread bacteria and make you sick. But stopping cross-contamination is simple. Use one cutting board for fresh produce, one for raw meat, and one for poultry or seafood, like we were talking about. Use separate plates and utensils for cooked and raw foods. Before using them again, thoroughly wash plates, utensils, and cutting boards that held raw meat, poultry, seafood, or eggs. Once a cutting board gets excessively worn or develops hard to clean grooves, you may want to consider replacing it. You want to keep your meat, poultry, seafood, and eggs separate from all other foods at the grocery store. Make sure you aren't, contaminating foods in your grocery bag. Separating raw meat, poultry, seafood, and eggs from other foods in your shopping cart. So if you have chicken, you want to keep that all together as one. If you have meat, you want to keep that as one, and so on. And then at the checkout, place raw meat, poultry, and seafood in plastic bags to keep their juices from dripping onto other foods. Okay, and then we're talking about still separating your food. Keep meat, poultry, seafood, and eggs separate from other foods in your fridge. So bacteria can spread inside your fridge if the juices of raw meat, poultry, seafood, and eggs drip onto ready-to-eat foods. But you can stop that just as easy. You'll place your raw meat, poultry, and seafood in containers or sealed bags to prevent their juices from dripping or leaking onto other foods. If you're not planning on using them right away, then you'll want to freeze them. Then you keep your eggs in their original carton and store them in the main compartment of the refrigerator, not in the door. And then we have another video here we'll take a look at.
We all know how well meat and vegetables go together in a meal. But before he cooked for his family, Terrence had to be careful to keep his lettuce and pork chops separate. Why? Because harmful bacteria from the raw meat can cross-contaminate other foods and may make those eating it very sick.
Where did that go?
If Terrence had forgotten to bring separate bags for his meat and produce at the grocery store, any bacteria from the pork chops could have cross-contaminated the head of lettuce. These bacteria can come from the juices of raw meat, or even just the products or product packaging touching when no visible juices are present. Fortunately, Terrence keeps raw meat and produce separated. But his food isn't out of danger yet. Cross-contamination can also happen in his refrigerator. But Terrence remembered to keep his raw meat and vegetables separate. More cross-contamination avoided. Terrence must be very careful when cutting his meat because, though he can't see, there could be bacteria on this pork. He can spread this bacteria from the meat to his utensils, his vegetables, and his kitchen towel. If he does not wash his hands well after touching the meat, cross-contamination is far more likely. But fortunately for his family, Terrence was careful. Terrence washes his hands with soap and warm water for 20 seconds after handling the pork. He also washes the cutting board and utensils. He keeps his vegetables separate from his raw meat, and he's careful to keep the cutting board and utensils used for the meat away from his raw vegetables. All Terrence has to do now is use a food thermometer to be sure that his meat is safely cooked. The pork's internal temperature is safe at 145 degrees Fahrenheit. All whole cuts of pork, beef, and lamb require a 3-minute rest time before they're safe to eat. During these 3 minutes after meat is removed from the heat source, its temperature remains constant or continues to rise, which destroys any remaining bacteria. Terrence was careful not to cross-contaminate his kitchen or food, and by cooking his meat to the proper temperature, he serves his family food that is safe to eat. He keeps the pork and lettuce separate during his prep, and now he can safely serve them together. For more information on how to prevent cross-contamination, visit foodsafety.gov.
Okay, now we're going to be going on to the cook part. Cook your food to right temperatures. Why does this matter? Did you know that bacteria that cause food poisoning multiply quickest in the danger zone between 40 degrees and 140 degrees Fahrenheit? And while many people think they can tell when food is done simply by checking its color and texture, there's no way to be sure it's safe without following a few important steps. Use a food thermometer. Cooked food is safe only after it's been heated to a high enough temperature to kill the bacteria. Color and texture alone won't tell you whether your food is done. Instead, use a food thermometer to be sure. If you don't already have one, consider buying a food thermometer. When you think your food is done, place the food thermometer in the thickest part of the food, making sure not to touch bone, fat, or gristle. Wait the amount of time recommended for your type of temperature. Some foods need 3 minutes of rest time, while others, may take a little more. Clean your food thermometer with hot soapy water after each use. Keep food hot after cooking it at 140 degrees or above. The possibility of bacterial growth actually increases as food cools after cooking because the drop in temperature allows bacteria to thrive. But you can keep your food above the safe temperature of 140 degrees Fahrenheit by using a heat source like a chafing dish, a warming tray, or a slow cooker. You also want to make sure you microwave your food thoroughly to 165 degrees. To make sure harmful bacteria have been killed in your foods, it's important to microwave them to 165 degrees or higher. So, if you're cooking something that was frozen, you'll follow the label. If the food label says, let's stand for X amount of minutes after cooking, don't skip the standing time. Letting your microwave food sit for a few minutes actually helps your food cook more completely by allowing colder areas of the food time to absorb heat from hotter areas of the food. The extra minute or two could mean the difference between a delicious meal and food poisoning. After waiting a few minutes, check the food with a thermometer to make sure it is 165 degrees or above. And you want to do this for reheating any food. So if you're eating leftovers, you want to make sure that that's heated to 165 degrees or above as well. And then we have a cook video.
I used my photo for all of my holiday gifts. I used my photo last Christmas.
We all have phones, and they all.
Lucia made this delicious-looking roast chicken for her family, but looks alone couldn't tell her if it was cooked safely. This chicken will make a great meal, but it's important that Lucia cook it to the proper internal temperature, or bacteria that may be present could make her family sick. The only way to know for sure that the food is safe to eat is to use a food thermometer. While this chicken roasts, let's look at some other meals the family cooked this week. On Monday, Terrence grills burgers. He knows that the color of the meat, its firmness, and the color of its juices are not indicators of when the meat is ready to eat. The only way to know for sure is to use a food thermometer. For burgers and thin meats, the food thermometer should be inserted into the side of the food. Terrence cooks all of his burgers to the minimum 160 degrees Fahrenheit safe temperature. Now he is sure his food has gotten hot enough to kill any bacteria present. On Tuesday, Lucia makes chicken wings, breasts, and drumsticks. She inserts the food thermometer into the thickest parts of the meat to make sure they're all at least 165 degrees Fahrenheit. She makes sure the thermometer isn't touching bone, fat, or gristle to get the most accurate reading. Wednesday night is casserole night. Lucia checks the temperature in several places, including the center, to be sure the dish is completely safe. Thursday night is Terrence's night to cook. He makes pork chops. He inserts the food thermometer into the thickest part of the pork to make sure it's safe at 145 degrees Fahrenheit. He then lets it sit for 3 minutes before serving it to his family. Whole cuts of beef, pork, and lamb also need 3 minutes rest time before serving. During these 3 minutes, after meat is removed from the heat source, its temperature remains constant or continues to rise, which destroys any remaining bacteria. Even though tonight's roast chicken may look cooked on the outside, Lucia needs to rely on the food thermometer to see the chicken's internal temperature. She will insert the food thermometer into 3 spots on the bird. First, the thickest part of the breast. Second, the innermost part of the thigh. And third, the innermost part of the wing. With a food thermometer, Lucia can also be confident she won't overcook her food. Once she sees that the chicken is cooked to a safe internal temperature, Lucia cleans her food thermometer with soap and water. By properly using a food thermometer, Lucia protects her family from bacteria during Friday night's meal. For more information on using a food thermometer and proper cooking temperatures, visit foodsafety.gov.
Okay, and our last item we're going to talk about today is chilling your food. So you want to make sure you refrigerate your food properly. Why does this matter? Did you know that illness-causing bacteria can grow in perishable foods within 2 hours unless you refrigerate them? And if the temperature is 90 degrees or higher during the summer, cut that time down to 1 hour. But by refrigerating foods promptly and properly, you can keep your family safe from food poisoning at home. So you want to make sure you refrigerate perishable foods within 2 hours. Cold temperatures slow the growth of illness-causing bacteria, so it's important to chill food properly and promptly. Here's how. Pack your refrigerator with care. To properly chill food and slow the bacteria growth, cold air must be allowed to circulate in your fridge. For this reason, it's important not to overstuff your fridge. Your fridge should be between 40 degrees and 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Appliance thermometers help you know if your fridge is cold enough. Get perishable foods into the fridge or freezer within 2 hours. In the summer months, cut this down to 1 hour. Remember to store leftovers within 2 hours as well. By dividing leftovers into several clean, shallow containers, you'll allow them to chill faster. And when it comes to freezing, you can freeze almost any food. That doesn't mean that the food will be good to eat or safe. Freezing does not destroy harmful bacteria, but it does keep food safe until you cook it. Your freezer should be at 0 degrees Fahrenheit or below, and you can, get a thermometer to help with that if you're not sure, if your freezer is below that level. And then our code word today is Christmas. So if you're watching this or you watch it, please send that code word to your teacher for extra credit. And then you never want to thaw or marinate foods on your counter. Many people are surprised at this tip, but since bacteria can multiply rapidly at room temperature, thawing or marinating foods on the counter or in your sink is one of the riskiest things you can do when preparing food for your family. To thaw food safely, here are some options. You want to thaw in the refrigerator. This is the safest way to thaw meat, poultry, seafood. Simply take the food out of the freezer and place it on a plate or pan that can catch any juices that may leak. Normally, it should be ready to use the next day. You can thaw it in cold water. For faster thawing, you can put the freezer package into a watertight plastic bag and submerge it in cold water. Be sure to change the water every 30 minutes. And then here's a note. If you thaw this way, be sure to cook the food immediately. You can thaw it in the microwave. Faster thawing can also be accomplished in the microwave. Simply follow the instructions, on your microwave or in the microwave's owner manual. As with thawing in water, you want to cook it immediately. And then cook without thawing. If you don't have enough time to thaw your food, just remember it is safe to cook foods from a frozen state, but your cooking time will be approximately 50% longer than fully thawed meat or poultry. And then to marinate food safely, always marinate it in the refrigerator. And then know when to throw your food out. You can't just tell by looking or smelling whether harmful bacteria has started growing in your leftovers or refrigerated foods. So be sure to throw your food out before harmful bacteria grow, or start checking, or you can check on the website that where they were showing for the safe storage times chart. But basically, I would say a good idea would be throw it away after 3 days, just to be on the safe side. And then our last video we're gonna watch today is about make sure you're chilling your food correctly.
Daddy did something.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Terrence's family would never guess these steaks were frozen. 1, because they're delicious, and 2, because they were thawed properly and safely. Between the grocery store and home, these steaks warmed to room temperature, which means it's possible that bacteria have grown. This meat would be safe for 3 to 5 days in the refrigerator, as with fresh beef, lamb, and pork. But since Terrence doesn't plan on using the steaks right away, he freezes them. Many people believe that freezing meat will kill bacteria, but that's not true. Freezing these steaks will slow the growth of bacteria, but it won't kill them. A few weeks later, Terrence is ready to make his steak dinner. If Terrence leaves this meat out on the counter, he is allowing the bacteria to grow and multiply. So, how should Terrence thaw his steaks? One option for Terrence would be to defrost his steaks in the microwave, but that will bring the meat's internal temperature to the danger zone. The danger zone is between 40 and 140 degrees Fahrenheit, when bacteria grow most rapidly. It could double in as little as 20 minutes. Because of this, Terrence should cook this meat right after defrosting. Another option is to thaw in the refrigerator. This will keep his steaks from reaching the danger zone of above 40 degrees Fahrenheit, but will also take up to 24 hours to defrost these 1-pound steaks. If Terrence doesn't have time to defrost his steaks in the refrigerator, he can thaw them in cold water. He puts the steaks in an airtight plastic bag and submerges them. He will have to change the water every 30 minutes until the meat is thawed. Small packages of meat, poultry, or seafood, about a pound, should thaw in 1 hour or less. A 3 to 4 pound package could take 2 to 3 hours. For whole poultry, estimate about 30 minutes per pound. Once Terrence's steaks have defrosted in cold water, they should be cooked immediately. Cooking the steaks to a USDA-approved safe temperature will kill any bacteria in the meat. Like all whole cuts of beef, pork, and lamb, these steaks need a 3-minute rest time. During these 3 minutes after the meat is removed from the heat source, its temperature remains constant or continues to rise, which destroys any remaining bacteria. Thawing food safely takes a little extra time and planning, but keeping these rules in mind will keep your family safe and healthy. For more information on safely thawing food, visit.
Okay, and if we have any questions, now would be the time to ask them. However, I hope you did get some information out of this, out of the videos and out of this live lesson regarding food safety.